Hi everybody, it's your art teacher, Mr. Wedge. Today we're going to draw a cityscape. So for our cityscape, we're just going to need a paper and something to draw with, and that's it. And I'm always going to start by writing my name on the back of my paper and whatever my class code is. So you're going to write 1 dash something, whatever everybody's in a different class. So flip it over, and we're drawing a cityscape. And if you remember, when we drew landscapes, we drew a horizon line, and that was the line that goes across the paper, and everything above the line is the sky, and everything below the line is the ground. And we're going to kind of do that with a cityscape too, but we're not going to use a horizon line because you can't see the ground when you look out over a big city. You just see the tops of the buildings. Well, that's called a skyline. So we're going to start by drawing a skyline, but instead we're going to do 2 of them, not just 1. And I'll show you why in a minute. But here's a little trick for drawing a skyline. It's a pattern. You ready? You're going to go over, up, over, down. And I'm just going to repeat that over and over, and that'll be my pattern. And that'll give me my skyline, which is the tops of the buildings. So over, up, over, down. And I'm going to keep going. Over, up, over, down. Over, up, over, down. Over, up, over, down. And they don't have to all be the same size. Some could be tall. And there you go. And you just go from one end of your paper all the way to the other. I'm going to do the same thing underneath real quick. So there we go. Now I have 2 skylines, and I did the same pattern, over, up, over, down, and I went from one end of my paper to the other. But the skyline on the bottom, I made everything a little bigger because the buildings on the bottom are closer to us, and you know that when things are closer to you, they look bigger. So small skyline on top with lots of buildings, big skyline on the bottom, and you might not have as many. But now we're using the art element of space because we've made different layers in our drawing. So instead of just the ground and the sky, now we've got buildings, more buildings, and the sky. So we're going to call this the foreground, the middle ground, and the background. So we have 3 layers of space. And as you start at the bottom, you're going to be close. And as you go higher up, you're going to go farther away. So we can start far away first. So think of anything you could draw in the sky over a city. Anything you can think of to draw in the sky over a city, you can add it right up here. So I drew the sun, I drew clouds. I've got an airplane because there's usually airports in cities. If you want to be realistic, some of your clouds could go right off the edge of the paper, kind of like this. So flat on the bottom, bumpy on top, and if they go right off the edge of the paper, it's more realistic that way. Anything else you can think of to add? I drew birds, and I just used the letter V over and over to make it look like birds flying. You could draw a helicopter. You'll see helicopters in the city sometimes. Or a blimp. Totally up to you. Okay? So that's the background. What about the middle ground? What's in the middle ground? Well, these are buildings, so I'm going to draw lots of windows. And you could just draw rectangles like this, but that does take a long time. It would look really cool, but maybe this is an old building with old style windows. You know, some of the new ones, they look like this. Lots of vertical lines. And you could even do vertical lines and then horizontal lines across. And that's another way to do windows. So these are all patterns. They're just things that repeat over and over. So I'm going to keep doing that and fill up my whole middle ground. So there we go. I filled up the middle ground with different patterns that kind of looked like windows to me. And I used my imagination. But if you want to look at a picture of a real city, you can get ideas, or just a couple buildings, because they usually all have different kinds of windows on them. But the more the better. And if it's hard to fill up this area, what you can do is draw a window here, draw a window here, draw a window here. You can jump around, and that way if you don't finish, it'll still look finished. That's an art trick. So we've got the background, the sky, the middle ground, the buildings far away, and the foreground. And the foreground is close to us. And so those buildings, we're going to see, you know, stores, signs, people going in and out. We're going to see the doors on them, all those details. So I like to draw the street. Maybe there's a sidewalk right here. And you could have people walking. There's lots of people in the city. Rochester has 200,000 people in it. That's a lot. So I'm going to draw more than one person walking here. And I do sticks for the arms and legs, a rectangle for the body, and a circle for the head. And they could be holding things, maybe like a bag or a briefcase or something, like they're going to work. You could have kids walking to school. It's probably really hard to see. This is a tiny detail. People could be walking dogs, you know. You could draw like an animal. You could draw birds, squirrels. There's a person walking a dog. I could draw windows on these buildings, but it'd be a lot bigger. And I might see the doors to go in and out. You might see a big shop window with people in it. So I'm going to keep adding things that I could think of that would be on the street down here, on the sidewalk. So I've got more people. I put lines in the sidewalk, you know, like those cracks in the sidewalk that they have, just to make it more realistic. Plus it's another pattern, which is more interesting. I added details like there's a fire escape right here. There's some trees in a window on a display. People hung up their laundry to dry. There's more doors and things. And I drew a car down here in the foreground too. So the way I drew a car, I mean, you can draw a car however you want, but I did 2 circles with a line that connects them, and then I went around the top of the car like that and connected again. So that's a way to do a car. You can add as many details as you want. The cool thing about a cityscape is that there's so much to look at, and you can use your imagination and think about some background knowledge that you might have, because I'm sure you've all been to a city before, and add whatever you want, whatever kind of details you want. People take buses in cities, so you could draw a bus same way. They got the driver, there's doors, windows, more doors on a city bus. You could draw taxis, so you could draw a car and then write T-A-X-I, okay? So there's lots of things you could add and just keep going, and the more you add, the better, all right? That's a cityscape. But don't forget to put your name on the back, and start by doing your 2 skylines. So over, up, over, down, over, up, over, down, all the way across, and do it twice, okay? And use your imagination and have fun with this. I'll see you guys soon.